Welcome everyone to this great time together, the Authors Forum, the June 4 edition at the Lamb Global Community. I tell you, we are so privileged and today to have really in our midst, one leader that I really want us to have for a long time. So it just so happened that we're able to have her today. And welcome with me, Coach May. She just wrote a best-selling book. I'm privileged to be one of the launching team on the launch team, and so called the Silicon Valley Girl. It's a must-read for everyone. I have copies of the book. That shows how much we believe in the book. Coach May, good to have you. How are you? Can you say hi to us?
Thank you, Dr. Mike. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
hello to everyone who is joining. I'm looking forward to having an amazing time
Yeah,
here on this forum. But I really want to appreciate you, Dr. Mike,
you're
for
welcome.
building platforms where voices can be heard, including the voices of authors. Thank you so much.
Wow, you are welcome. Thank you so much. This is what it's all about. It's all about significance. Coach May, I saw you all over the place. I saw you in Dallas. You are doing a book signing. You are having a tour. Wow, I'm so excited for you. Your book came out the first day as the bestseller, and now you are going from city to city, sharing the book. Tell us about the Silicon Valley Girl. Why this topic? Why the Silicon Valley Girl? Yeah.
Well, the Silicon Valley Girl is a book about my career journey. And that journey happened to take me through Silicon Valley earlier on. So
Hmm.
as I chronicled different, parts of my story and
Hmm.
finished writing the book, now the question was now what to call it. And between my writing coach and I, we
Hmm.
we came to the conclusion that the spirit of the Silicon Valley, and when I'm talking about the spirit, I'm talking about the innovativeness,
Hmm.
the forward thinking, the entrepreneurial spirit, and
Hmm.
all that seemed to define my journey. So
Hmm.
that term just leapt out of the book, I guess, out of the words I had written. And once we coined it, it stuck. And we chose
Hmm.
to call the book by that name.
Wow, it really stuck. I tell you, there could be no better topic than that Silicon Valley Girl. Yeah. So now, book writing is this podcast is unique in the sense that we really focus on the book writing journey because on this platform we have amazing leaders, aspiring authors, and we already have authors and I'm privileged to have written just some few books and so it's all started when people were coming to me asking, "Oh, can you share with us the secret sauce? We saw you writing books." I said, so I was now reflecting on what James Clear said. James Clear happened to be one of our speakers at the Maswell Leadership and a conference, and that was in 2024. And he mentioned how he and some authors they came together to have an authors retreat. They rent an Airbnb and they were spend the weekend together, and they came up so much, really excited, inspired. They said, "Wow, this is great." So when I heard that, and when people were telling me that, oh, I said, "Oh, let's just have a forum." In fact, it all started as a pentagon. So we call it the Authors Pentagon. So it was five of us, and Coach Remy, and she's on board right now. She's one of our dynamic leaders in the Lamb Global Community. She's the one of the foundation members. She has never missed a meeting, and both of us have never missed. So since May last year, oh, we should have even have Pastor. We should have Coach May last month. In the month of May, we should have brought Coach May, but and got so good. The book came out in May, so your book is just a month old. Yeah. So that's how we started. So tell us what does it means for? Is this your first book?
No, actually, this is my
Because I know
fourth.
it's not your first book, but it seems your first book because there's something about this book that has momentum. So tell us what is so special about this book. Tell us.
Yes, I think like what you were talking
Mm,
about people coming together with a shared focus and
mm,
shared commitment really
mm,
struck a chord, because it's the essence of community. And when
mm,
you have community, things just seem to gain more traction. And I
mm,
think one of the biggest things for me in publishing this book was the community that surrounded me, even as
mm,
I got ready to publish it. And you are part
mm,
of that community, the
mm,
launch team. I had
mm,
a group of people who I've developed relationships with over
mm,
the years that, I told I'm having a book come out. Would you like to be part of my launch team? And
mm,
that team really cheered me on. And
mm,
there are times when I felt, especially towards the tail end, when I'd feel like, oh my gosh, maybe I can't make it this deadline. Maybe I'll need to push it forward. And I'm thinking, I cannot disappoint this community. I have to make it happen.
mm,
And then when I'd be looking at the editing and things like that, it made me put my best foot forward. And
mm,
also, I shared a couple of chapters with the team ahead of
mm,
time just to put things out there and see what they felt. And
mm,
that feedback was like fuel. It was like
mm,
it felt the
mm,
last lap, right? Where it's like I came to believe, even before the book was released, I came
mm,
to believe that I had something. And
mm,
I think that belief gave, because every step of releasing a book,
mm.
that leads to the release of a book is important.
Yeah.
The writing is important,
Mm,
but also the release is important. Someone
yeah.
said that a well-written book is not the same as a best-written book is not necessarily going to be a best-selling book. That
Mm,
you can write a book very well, but when it
mm,
comes to the release, the launch, what kind of effort are you going to put towards that? And
mm,
that community helped me to put my best foot forward so that
mm,
I could make as much noise as possible. And they
mm,
amplified my voice. At the end of
mm,
the day, the book got into the hands of many more people than
mm,
it would have, because of the community
mm.
that cheered me,
Yeah.
all the way through to the finish line.
Wow, that was awesome. Yeah. So, Coach May, since this is not your first book that you are writing, tell us, what does the book writing process? Take us through your book writing journey, the conception, the creation, the production, and because like I said, writing a book is like having a baby.
It
I
is. It
I
is
was
really.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I had a book shower when I wrote my tenth book. It was during my birthday, September 21 last year, and I'm having another book shower on June 21 when the
That's
12th
good.
one will be coming out. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because what many people do not know is, and people can see the glory, they don't know the story.
Yes.
So we have seen the glory of the Silicon Valley girl, but we want to hear the story. Can you tell the world the
Okay.
story of the Silicon Valley girl? What does it take you? How long does it take you? What was the process like?
Okay.
And then we are highlighting the vulnerable factor. What make you vulnerable during the process? Is there any time during the writing that you felt like quitting, giving up about this thing? And do you have any imposter syndrome? So many things that people want to know. Can you just share with us, what does your story look like? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the last two books I've written, Dear Pastor's Wife, and then this one, Silicon Valley Girl. I have had a writing coach, the same writing coach,
Mm,
who has worked with me through the process. And this is basically what she's done. At the beginning, she would ask me what I see the book doing and
mm,
what I want it to do, what I want to write about. And then we brainstorm on the type of chapters that I want. So the books I've written are things I've carried for a long time on my heart, right?
mm.
In fact, at the end of my last book, which I released 3 years ago, Dr. Mike, I need to come to you for grace to release. The last book I wrote was in 2021. And
Receive grace.
then it's been 4 years, you know? So But 4 years ago, in the
Yeah.
epilogue, I wrote that my next book will be called A Consecrated Career. Now, that's not the title of this book, but the
Mm,
inception was already, that was or what, let me put it this way, the seeds were already
mm,
there in my heart
mm,
for this book.
mm,
But starting out with somebody who helps me to have a roadmap really helps, because
mm,
I can talk first, I can cast the vision, and while I'm
mm,
casting the vision, I'm also hearing myself speak. All right. So it doesn't have to be a writing coach. It can be a friend. It can be it can be a sibling, somebody that will listen, that has the ears to listen. Because basically what the person does for me is help me to speak. All right.
mm,
And then helps me to gain clarity with a roadmap. We lay
mm,
out the chapters. So by then, maybe I'd start with about 70% of the chapter titles. The chapter titles may change, but at least I know what I want to write in each chapter. All right.
mm,
And then she keeps me accountable. So
mm,
really, I write my books very fast, really. I think I was done with writing this in 4 weeks, because
wow.
yeah, in about 4.5 weeks. Because
Mm,
she would start with, okay, maybe a goal of writing 2 chapters a week, but once
mm,
I get into it, I will come back and surprise her with 4 chapters. So I may start
mm,
2 chapters a week. She'll
mm,
read and she'll be like, this is great. And then she'll say 2 chapters next week. I come back with 4 chapters. Because what
mm,
I'm in the, and because I do a lot of storytelling, once I start
mm,
telling the stories, they just keep flowing. Like
yeah.
they are my stories. I knew after all. So they just keep
Mm,
flowing. And
mm,
then I actually finish just like the same as my last book. I
mm.
usually finish in a relatively short period of time. But then
Wow.
this is what happens. Then
Mm,
it goes into the cooler for a while. And this
mm,
is where things like self-doubt come in,
mm,
right? Because I finished writing this book, I'd say about August last year, September last year. And then it went into the cooler, where I'm like, okay, when
mm,
am I going to release this? Do I even want to release this? Is this going to
mm,
be a great book or
mm,
whatever? And
mm,
then, so I and somebody who takes a longer time to write may start at the same time, and they will end up publishing before me
mm,
just because of that cooling period.
mm,
And so I went through that, and I kept wondering what would be the best time to release this. And eventually, I think I set a timeline for about September last year. It didn't happen. And eventually, at the beginning of this year, I said I want to release it in on my birthday, which
mm,
is the 4th of May. And
mm,
so I went through the final rounds of revising this, editing, and all that in the weeks
mm,
leading to the launch. And on the 4th of May, I was able, in fact, I had already my manuscript uploaded to Amazon by the
mm.
28th of April, and 4th of May, we met
Wow.
the deadline.
And it's not an
Published.
accident. Today is 4th of June, just a month
Oh,
old.
so it's a month. Oh my goodness.
I tell
Wow.
you how time flies. Yeah. Okay, Coach May, can you tell us about is there any tool that you use that help you? And I mean, maybe like during the process of your writing, some people use tools, and there are so many tools available to us today. So tell us, what was the specificity of your own book writing experience like? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I use something as rudimentary as Google Docs, from Google Docs to doing my research on in ChatGPT. For example, there's some research about Silicon Valley in the 2000s, which
Mm,
I needed to add to make my writing about
mm,
Silicon Valley a bit more robust, right?
mm,
So I used some of that for editing, and for research, and then towards the end, I also used AI a bit for editing, right?
mm,
That was very helpful in helping me with my editing.
mm,
Um, as far as other tools are concerned, I guess there will be tools that my book layout person used, and also my cover design. The person,
mm.
actually, my daughter did the cover design.
Yeah, I am so thrilled by that because she's such a it reminds me of one of our author that just came out with his book, Dr. Dakpo. It's on this platform now. The daughter did the cover design of his book too. I think
It's
and I think that
becoming a
was so
theme.
unique when a child is part of the parents' vision. It's such a great one, and I
Yes.
love that. When I see such things, it's something great. Yeah, one question I would like to ask you right now is this. Now, when we're talking about writing book, and you are mentioning a writing coach, and so is it? And I know that you paid a lot of money to have that. So what about someone that is listening to you now? That, oh, what if someone cannot afford a writing coach? So and so I just want to put it out there to you. So what would be your advice for people that are listening that at least we didn't know how much you pay your writing coach now? That is it the same is it the same fee that LeBron James is paying his coach?
I tell you, I mean, I won't disclose how much I paid, but it's not. I think you'll be very surprised by, and then I don't want to, because just in case she changes her prices, but she also gives me a good discount because we have a lot of things in common.
Mm,
So that's that. I mean, I've heard people give me very, I mean, who have told me they want to write a book and they're
mm,
talking to coaches, or um, it depends on how much control they want over the process. Some
mm,
people outsource the whole process, and then and then they pay big amounts of money. And
mm,
when you hear that, you can get discouraged and feel like,
mm,
I can't afford that, and therefore I
mm,
cannot write.
mm,
That's not true. In
mm,
fact, thank God for AI. AI can be your writing coach,
mm, mm,
not your writer, but your
mm,
writing coach.
mm, mm,
How? You can tell your AI with a prompt, I would like you to serve as my writing coach.
mm,
I want to write a book about this and this and this. Help me juggle my memory, or help me organize my thoughts on
mm,
this topic, right? The
mm.
same thing my writing coach, and I'm not trying to get writing coach out of their jobs now. The same
Because
thing
you
my
are talking to one of them now.
yes. Oops.
I'm,
So anyway,
I'm the president of the Writing Coach Association. So the union is going to come at you now.
I'll
I'm
leave it
just
there.
kidding.
I'll leave
I'm
it
just
there.
kidding. Yeah.
Let me just say there are different price points, and
Yeah.
someone does not need to get discouraged
Yeah.
because they feel they cannot afford, a Les Brown budget to write a
Yes.
book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, don't get.
And I'm glad we talk about that so that people can still realize. I like to people know that they have options, and so
Yes.
they might decide to have one, and if they don't, there are so many options available to them. It depends on what they want. So the next question is, what is the
And
most?
then, can I add this
Yeah.
before you go on?
Yes.
Now, a person will always be better, like the person to person relationship
Yeah.
that you develop with a writing. It's so precious. I tell my writing coach that she brings out the best stories from me.
Mm,
That's just the way a person can talk to you, that you remember so much. Maybe because I write the way I do, I write
mm.
with a lot of vulnerability, a lot of
Yeah.
my stories, and I can't imagine a computer bringing those stories out.
Yes, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Now, you just eat enough. Now, talking about vulnerability. So tell us, how do you leverage the vulnerability factor in effective book writing?
Oh, wow. I think that vulnerability, just in general,
Mm,
is very powerful in the sense that it helps people, it lets people connect to your stories on the human to human level.
mm,
Um, when somebody sees themselves in your story, there's just something that makes your story so much more powerful. So
mm,
vulnerability is something I don't take for granted, even in the
mm,
other things I do in
mm,
life, as a counseling people, as a spiritual leader, and what have you. I want to be able to connect to somebody. I want to be able to let people see I'm human. I
mm,
have doubts. I've failed. I have mistakes.
mm,
right? I have stories. Some are great, some are comical,
mm,
but you know what? There's something about grit, about resilience that
mm.
makes it so that no matter what different directions my journey has gone,
Yeah.
um, I want you to know that
Mm,
A, B, C, D, E were certain
mm,
things that I did
mm,
to turn things around, right?
mm,
It's different from coming at a situation like I always knew everything.
mm,
Like, oh, I'm coming to tell you 5 things you ought to do. That's powerful
mm,
as well. But for me, the vulnerability I found to be powerful because it helps people to let their guard down. It helps
mm,
people to read your story without shaming themselves, right?
mm,
Because sometimes when we read success stories, which are great, we first shame ourselves, like, oh my God, they are this because, they are not
mm,
like me. But
mm,
if I can somehow let you know that I'm like you, and that, oh, this can, then it can be an encouragement, right?
mm,
So I feel that vulnerability is very powerful, but there's a skill to it as well. uh,
mm,
I share a lot of stories, but I have to be careful that I don't make people villains in my story.
mm,
Because in human interaction, yeah, there might be people maybe that may have treated you wrongly or whatever, or maybe you've been hurt by people or what have you. That person, whoever they are, cannot come and read my book and see that I've just written about them. I feel
mm,
like it's not treating others decently. So
mm,
there's a skill to vulnerability where I can tell my story without throwing people under the bus. So that even when I talk about maybe things that
mm,
could be like racial tensions in this book, there's a chapter that's titled "The Only Black Woman in the Room." If you see how I wrote it in such a way that I give a lot of grace to people
mm,
who may not have understood what it meant to be black, the only black person in the room. Where
mm,
I didn't say it's their fault, they treated me wrong, they did that. No, I said things like, I felt um, I felt different. I felt isolation, but it's not because my coworkers were intentionally malicious. They
mm,
just didn't understand what it meant to be different. I
mm,
use language like that so that I can be vulnerable without a coworker of mine who is just excited to buy a book that their former coworker wrote,
mm,
opening it up and seeing me just
mm,
bad mouthing them and what have you. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't situations where that's warranted, where in
mm,
telling your story the way it is, that people won't be villains in there. But
mm,
I just try to avoid it if it's not necessary. And
mm,
I think that's a skill
mm,
that's required with vulnerability. That in telling my story, in being vulnerable with my story, I don't assume the right to be
mm,
vulnerable on somebody else's behalf,
mm.
right? I'm
Wow.
being real, but I don't assume the right on
Mm,
somebody else's behalf to
mm,
tell their business as well.
mm.
or
Wow. That's
else
awesome.
anybody around me then becomes a victim. Where I
Mm.
feel like I can just share your story anyhow.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of skills, and I believe this will help a lot of people, and yeah, because and that's the balance, and because one of the key in building trust is vulnerability, authenticity, and confidentiality. Those are the three components of high trust building. And Brené Brown, which is an authority, in vulnerability, talks about you are only beautiful where you are vulnerable. So the question is how, and in book writing, how will you uh, encourage more aspiring authors to be vulnerable? At times some people, they feel like, oh, and the pain they've gone through, and I'm learning so much about pain, and this is the current thing I'm learning. And don't mind me, I learn every day, and I'm reading 11 books every day at the moment. I don't finish it, I read from that. It's part of my reading, and the more I read, the more I realize there's so much more I didn't know. So yesterday, what I learned about pain, and it's talking about pain itself is a fuel. And and that pain is a power not yet harnessed. So, and as I was still learning, and I now realized that pain is a lever that most people collapse under it. But if you shift your grip, you can use it to lift. And it's so powerful that pain is not the enemy. It is not something to get over. It is something to go through and extract the message from it, because pain always have a message. But the most challenging thing is many people never tap into the message of pain because of lack of vulnerability. To tap into the message of pain, you have to be vulnerable, because you have to realize that this is not about me. Because you can either transfer the pain or transform the pain. So transforming the pain is what brings the gain to the audience, to the readers, and all that. So can you share and about you, what you experience? I know you just like you feel pain about being the only black woman in the room, how you're being treated. So how were you able to harness this power of pain and being able to still help? You didn't transfer the pain. That's why you didn't talk bad about those people and all that. You transform it. So you are able to unlock that pain through the power of vulnerability to deliver the gain to the reader. So tell us what. Sorry,
Wow.
I've just like a. So I
Thank
see you're listening
you.
to a dissertation now. Oh
Wow,
God.
thank you. That's such a powerful
Yeah,
question, and
yeah,
the things you shared before
yeah.
the things you shared while asking are so, so powerful.
Mm,
There's a particular chapter in the book that's
mm,
titled Trying Marriage, Miracles, and Trying Times.
mm,
Now, reading through that chapter now, there are a lot of things with comical anecdotes associated with them in reading the chapter.
mm,
But going through the things I write about in that chapter was very
mm,
painful. It was
mm,
a very trying time, one of many, right?
mm,
One of many. But that particular time, it was an extended period of unemployment when I
mm,
was looking for a job, and combined with getting pregnant, and
mm,
the pregnancies with my children, and
mm,
the identity crisis associated with that time, and the
mm,
fact that what had landed me in this situation was what a good decision. I'd made
mm,
a decision to go with my husband, to come with my husband from Silicon Valley to Chicago to start a church. And I thought it was going to be easy. Why? Because I'd made a huge sacrifice of my
mm,
career in the Silicon Valley. I thought I was going to be immediately rewarded. But then I had months and months and months of job
mm,
searching, of questioning my identity, I went from being a software engineer in the Silicon Valley to being a pregnant pastor's wife with no job. And even in that process, there was and I'm talking about 21 years ago, right?
mm.
The things weren't as they are today, where you can get so much information on the internet
Yeah.
and you
Mm,
have all these resources. So a job search was so difficult for me in
mm,
that season. And even in that season, I had a company that said they were hiring me, and they ended up swindling me for $500 that I didn't have.
mm,
Right? $500 that I scrambled to put together, and
mm,
all that. So those were painful moments.
mm,
But I think maybe the passage of time, and also the fact that, yeah, the passage of time helped. The fact that I, I've had time to self-reflect, to
mm,
draw out the lessons from there.
mm,
I had time even in that season to pause and not focus so much on the pain, and actually take in lessons.
mm,
Change. There were things in that season that molded my character, molded resilience, molded mean to somebody who can celebrate others that are
Mm,
winning without being covetous of their successes, of the things they're able to buy with money, even
mm,
though I didn't have a whole lot in that season. I was resourceful. I share a funny story of how because I was just giving birth to a child, I didn't have money to buy a whole lot of clothes. And eventually I went into my closet, I saw my pre-pregnancy clothes, and I was like, well, the only thing keeping me between um the only thing between me and wearing these clothes is some pounds, right? So that motivated me to lose a lot of weight. Why? Because I didn't have a whole lot of money
mm,
for new clothes. Now I could share that in the book in a funny way. But
mm,
I kid you not, something, the level of what do I call it? What would push you to lose weight
mm,
instead
mm.
of buying new clothes?
The
It's
motivation.
not an easy thing, right? It
Mm,
wasn't easy then, right?
mm,
So I think that having the right perspective as we go
yeah.
through stuff is important. Being self-reflective, and
Mm,
in doing so, we reflect on the lessons we are learning,
mm,
realizing that painful times can actually mold us into better versions of ourselves. It
mm,
will help us, it will strip us of assumptions, of
mm,
errors, and all that. It's actually quite powerful. And then why do we write? Why do we talk about these things? We talk
mm.
about these things because we never know the people that are going to connect with those stories.
Yeah.
You never know the person who is going to go through in this year what you went through last year and receive
Mm,
encouragement that things can look better. I had
mm,
somebody in, because that chapter 5 was one of the chapters I shared with the launch team leading to the
mm,
launch. And I had an old classmate, my high school classmate who is in the launch team. I know that classmate has been going through a few things, right? And they said that when I invited them to join that launch team, they joined, but there was something condemning them that, they should have written a book, that he's been working on a book, has not finished. And then he hears a book called Silicon Valley Girl. And I think he thought it was going to be full of great stories about how smart I am and how I've
mm,
just, done all these great things and made all these achievements and things like that. Yes, there are stories about achievement in here. But he said when he read that chapter, he was so encouraged
mm,
that he let go of every shame, all the things that were shaming him in his season, right?
mm,
Because I was very vulnerable about
mm,
some of the shame I felt in that season. So
mm,
you never know. You
mm,
never know somebody. Why? But I guarantee you that there's
mm.
always going to be somebody who is
Yeah.
going through the same pain that you are
Mm,
either going through or you have gone through. So it helps. I think it's even cathartic for us to
yeah.
share certain things. It's there's a
Mm,
comfort that comes
yeah.
from it.
Yeah. And
So
it's even
it's not,
therapeutic. Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Mm,
not only helping others,
mm,
but
yeah.
it helps you as well.
Mm, wow, that's awesome. So right now we're gonna open up for Q&A from the live audiences. We have some live audiences right here at the Authors Forum. So if you have any question for Coach May, you can raise your hand so we can entertain some question. But please be brief and with your questions so that we can have more people. So we have Coach Tammy right here from Toronto. If you can put your video on, I'll spotlight you so that you can be on the platform, Coach Tammy, and she's the Pelican in Chief. How are you,
I'm
Coach
doing
Tammy?
well. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So nice to meet you, Pastor May, if I call you that.
yeah.
Congratulations on your books. I have two questions. So thinking about the title, so you said yourself, your writing coach, talked about it, and you stuck with that. I'm in the process of writing a book, my first book, actually, and I have ideas on what the title should look like. I want to seek your kind of advice. And if I wanted to select a particular title, do I need to run the book with other people to read through, or is it okay to go by my gut feel? What would you say?
Okay. If I'd gone by my gut feelings for this book, you know what I was going to call this book? I was going to call it A Memoir of a Consecrated Career. My coach said, no, we are not calling it that. right? So I think it's always helpful to run it by people. Now they don't have to read everything, because people have a lot of things on their plate.
Mm,
You can help them out, give them a good summary. Maybe talk if someone you are going to ask to weigh in on the title of your book. um, I think needs to be somebody that maybe can give you the audience of maybe an audience of maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes to
mm,
explain why you wrote the book, what the
mm,
book is about, some salient points from the book, right?
mm,
And then you run the options by them,
mm,
um, see what they feel about it. At the end of the day, it's still going to be your decision,
mm,
right? But you may get a lot of good feedback that will help you to see what's not working, right? Can ask them questions like, if you saw a book with this title, would you buy it? Would you want to buy it?
mm.
For example, if you wanted to write a book on how not to steal, don't steal anymore. Don't call it how not to steal. Why? Because the person picking up, so imagine there are lots of books on the table and somebody sees how not to steal. Even if that's what they need, they're not likely to pick it up. Why? They don't want everybody to know they have a stealing problem.
Wow, wow, wow. That was such a Coach May. You remind me of something I was thinking about one time, that if there's an option of two books and someone now want to pick, and Coach Temi, and put this up to you too, and someone now said you can't eat your cake and have it. That's a book option number one. And the second person now wrote how to eat your cake and have it. Which one will you buy?
How to eat my cake and have it.
Why did you settle for that topic?
Because I want both.
Because that's so
Human
so
nature.
the reason why I brought that up is just like the people that will read your book, they're just like you. So if you see, like Coach May was talking about, because the thing is that you have to appeal. There's a book I'm reading now about building a story brand. By I want to recommend that book to everyone. It's by Donald Miller. And this book was actually recommended by one of my hero, Dave Ramsey. And the book was talking about you need to remove confusion from your message for it to be clear to the people you want to serve. And it talks about appealing to people's desire. So the book have to appeal to people's desire, because if you hear the Silicon Valley girl, that it has a lot of appeal. There's so much pomp about the Silicon Valley girl. So, for instance, my book coming out in the next few weeks. When and this is another thing I want to tell you about, the benefit of shared thinking. If you have a group of people, I have a group of leaders I work with. Where we have 24 of them with my wife, making 25 in the Lamb Global community. So before I do something, I run it through them, even the cover and all that. And have I always done that? No. But when I start doing that, I start seeing the changes. Many
Mhm.
of them see what I don't see.
Yeah.
And also I have a mentor, Elizabeth McCormick. And when I run the subtitle through her, he said, Michael, don't do that. I was thinking about the title of the book is Leader, Lead Yourself, Understanding the Power of Self-Leadership. He said, no. He said the word understanding is not powerful enough. So she now gave me a subtitle, which I'm using now. And that was a game changer. So she, just by sharing it with her, she was able to. So if you have people like that in your life, you can take advantage. That's what we call the benefit of shared thinking. Because people see what you don't see. So and that has really helped me, because I will have written the book since last year, but I just had that kind of being patience, and that patience has paid off. I've got so much feedback, for the book to come out. So there you go. Hope we answer your question.
You did. And the last one I have, okay. Can I have one more?
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So it's your story, right?
Yeah.
I want to know whether did you do any embellishment at all?
Not that I know of. Um, no, at least not intentionally. I I feel like I've had quite an interesting career journey that I don't know when you are describing, of course, I'm describing something. It's something in the past. I'm describing a building, for example. When I describe the company I worked for in the Silicon Valley, I talk about Terra, I talk about the wood panels, and I remember vaguely some wood paneling, right? But it's not necessarily that there was wood paneling all over the place and glass all over so there's some liberties I took there in describing maybe locations and things like that, or emotions. All right, maybe I may have heightened some emotions more than they were in the moment. But as far as going out rightly to embellish and add inaccuracies. And I'm trying to think as I'm talking. I didn't, not intentionally anyway, unless maybe I remembered something and I didn't remember it accurately, right? So.
Wow. Okay, that's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you, Coach Tammy. Thank you. And Dr. Dakpo, we will bring you up here if you put
Thank
your
you,
video
Coach Tammy,
on.
for those questions. They're very good questions. Nice to meet you.
You're welcome. So I'm gonna bring another great personality, which is another author, and Dr. Dakpo Nodikbe, and he will be our guest for next month. Dr. Dakpo, tell us what's your question like for Coach May? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pastor May, nice meeting you, and great book. Yeah, I want to make a little clarification. You spoke about being vulnerable and respecting the other people's rights. Let me put it that way. I quite understand that, but there are some ways that when you are sharing your personal experience, maybe some people had crossed your paths, and in really telling the story, what they did, you know, um, you know, you have to recount it.
Yeah.
And, some people may do things that, maybe afterwards they may not even be happy about it. But, in you telling your story, somehow you're going to relate some of those things they did. Of course, if the person reads the book, the person may not feel happy, seeing that online. However, in, putting things in the right perspective, some of those information has to come out. So how do you strike a balance between, those two sides?
Thank you very much. Thank you for that question, Dr. Dapo. In fact, that was more, that was a bigger factor even in my last book, Dear Pastor's Wife. Okay. This book, Silicon Valley Girl, is a memoir of my career journey. Dear Pastor's Wife is a memoir of my journey as a pastor's wife. And and one of the biggest things about dealing with people in the church context is hurt. People are going to hurt you and all that. And what I tried to do in that place, in fact, there was a particular chapter I had written, and it was like I was bleeding all over the pages. Like I was bleeding all over the pages of that chapter. And when I went back to read that chapter, I realized that it was so raw, the emotions were raw, and the stories needed to be told. So what I did was make it such that I still communicated what I needed to communicate. I still had villains in the story, but such that even the person or the people who may have been quote unquote villains in my story, if they were to read it, they may not even recognize that it's about them. So I abstracted some details, right? That makes it difficult for somebody to find a page in my book and say, she's talking about me here. Right. So some of the skills I would say I really had to hone in writing Dear Pastor's Wife, because it's a book that has stories about people, and I needed to go back, because I can write something today and feel really good about it, and then come back in 2 years time and wish I hadn't. And so abstracting some details out of there, taking out the learning point, yes, pointing the rawness, letting people see the rawness of the emotions, and also seeing that these emotions didn't just come to be in a vacuum. People caused it, right? But also doing it in a way that the very people that caused it won't be able to see themselves there. It was difficult, but I had to rewrite, especially that particular chapter, a couple of times to achieve that purpose.
Coach May, I can really relate to what you're talking about. And my second book, when it came out, I was still in medical school then. It's Understanding Your Gift. So one of the statement I make then was, your friend determines your hand. So when I wrote that book, I was coming from a function and from one of my cousin. So since then I've been observing that why is his life this way? So I saw some friends with him on that engagement. It was engagement of his junior brother. So, and now, of course, I have to describe the circumstances, but the way I wrote it in such a way that even if he reads it, he won't have a clue. I didn't mention names, but guess what? My nephew found me out, but he didn't know what I was talking about. But the only thing that got the attention is the dates that I put the date of that event. So she now took a copy. She now showed me that she has a question for me. I said, okay. I said, what's the question? She said, who am I talking about here? But like I said, the thing is, it is well done to protect the person interest, because what is very important is I want to communicate the idea. So what I'm just trying to share for every aspirant, so there's a way you can communicate the idea without any drama. You understand what I'm saying? But my nephew, she's older now, she's married now. She was able to, that date is what make her to know that, oh, this is the event of so person's wedding and all that. That was why she was not asking that question. But there was no mentioning of someone's names. I just mentioned I saw someone. So I never knew that, but she was able to ask me, and
Yes,
I was
and I
able
feel
to.
like these things, of course, if somebody is really digging and
Yeah,
sleuthing and trying, and
and
is
that's
quite a
better.
detective,
Yeah, you
I mean,
didn't spill the beans,
they'll
so
find, yeah, they'll find
exactly.
out. But
But it takes a lot of discipline to really communicate the idea without having any drama, because the goal is not to nail anybody. We just want to get the idea to people that this is what happened. But and as an author, you still have to show grace, because you don't want, like what Coach May said, after many years to think that, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and that's kind of stuff. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dakpo. We have
thank you.
another person now. Please, can you turn your video on? Thank you, Dr. Dakpo, so that we can bring you up.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tapo.
We saw someone, Messi Galore. Can you turn your video on, please? So that we can bring you up.
Good evening.
Hello. Okay. So we have you right now. Yeah. Your name, please.
After Yetunde. Yetunde, can you
Okay,
hear me?
yeah.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you
Yeah.
for a job well done.
You're welcome.
My
Yeah.
question is this. My regards to Coach May, God bless you and God bless your efforts. You see, in terms of book writing, the aspect I'm so much concerned with is the conceptualization. The conceptualization and the ability to maintain a line of continuity. It's giving me a lot of challenge. And in the process of maintaining a line of continuity, how do I maintain connectivity without my, concepts and ideas being disjointed? I would like you to help me out on that, man. Thank you.
Okay. I think that, thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Thank you for that beautiful question. I think one of the things that helped me to do that is starting with somebody, for example, like I said, my writing coach, somebody that will help you to start with a big picture in mind. Because I do know, especially if we're writing about stories and things like that, they say, oh, we can go down rabbit holes, right? We start writing a story, we are enjoying it so much, and then we finish, and then we've forgotten, why did I start writing? Why did I even put this story in the book in the first place, right? But when we start with the big picture, this is what I'm trying to do with the book. Okay. And from there, you now break it down into thoughts. And those thoughts, big ideas, right? Top level ideas. And those thoughts are what will lead to the chapters. So we start with the biggest idea, what I want to do with the book. Then you now break it down. For example, something like this, I broke down into in chronological order. What are the ideas I want to bring in from my childhood? Then my college years in Nigeria, my early college years in the US, my first job and all that. Then I now went into, at the end of that, I now went into lessons, right? So starting with that big picture, and then breaking that into thoughts, which led into chapters, already eliminated things that will send me off tangent, right? Because if I start to write something, I need to tie it into what I've already identified. It needs to fit into a chapter. If I think of a brighter, oh, I really want to write about this, then I need to think, what chapter is this going to go under? And if it doesn't fit into any of those chapters, then I need to justify why I'm putting it in the book. Because that's probably indicating to me that I'm starting to lose my train of thoughts. I'm starting to go down a path that could be great, but it could be a great path for another book. Right. So I'm already starting with a roadmap. I'm going from Chicago to Philadelphia. If Atlanta comes in, Atlanta is a great place to go, but where is it along the line to Philadelphia? Maybe it's a path for another road trip. So having my roadmap ahead of time helps me to eliminate things that could be distractions in my process.
Wow.
Thank you. And secondly, ma'am, how can I identify a writing coach?
We have a writing coach here.
As a starter.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the last part of.
I said especially as a starter.
Yeah, we have an excellent writing coach in the room here.
Okay, that's an open invitation.
Okay, we can help you. We can talk about it and
All right,
behind it. But I want to mention something that Coach May said. When you want to write a book, you have to begin. We've been learning some things about book writing since we started from the Book in You podcast from the Maswell Leadership. So you have to begin with the end in mind. So what we're gonna do is that, are you on WhatsApp?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna add you to we have a WhatsApp forum, and then Coach May, with your permission, we can add you there because so I mean we because the thing is we just want to create a forum to be of much influence to people. So what we gonna do is that in that, begin with end in mind. So you have to ask yourself, you must have a target. Who am I writing to? You see, the thing is, and one thing is this: don't overthink it. The first draft of any book you write is for you. It's not for your audience. So the problem that people do is that they want to write and edit the same time. It won't work. So the first time you want to write, we have what we call the creation phase. Just let it out. Put it all down. Forget about perfection. It's not about perfection. It's all about effort. So put your ideas down. Just put your ideas down. But you have to begin with the end in mind. Just like you watch a movie, you see how they begin with the end in mind. But the main thing you have to really know is this, that this book process, you need to have a picture of, oh, what do I want to communicate? There's so much nuances to it, but the main thing I want you to know is your first phase. Just put it down. Don't overthink it. Like what Coach May is saying, you might put the idea down. You'll find that, wow, I'm looking at 5 books. But if you don't put it down first, someone said, don't think it, ink it. Inking it bring clarity. There are 3 things that happen when you write. I don't want to go into that now. That's another conversation. You understand what I'm saying? But one of the things that happens is clarity. You don't have clarity when the idea is in your mind. So that's why the first thing is just put the idea down. Your original idea, let it be on the paper. So as it's on the paper, you now start seeing the structure, the framework. For instance, my book are acronyms. I have it. That's me. I write in acronyms. My current book I'm writing now is on personal leadership, and it has the 10 pillars. The pillars are leadership. That's it. The acronym. You understand what I'm saying? So you need to. But you have to put your original idea there and begin to find that what is unique about you as the author. Every author have his uniqueness. Coach May, I've watched a trend. She has a uniqueness. Your uniqueness is what people are buying. That's what we call your USP, your unique selling proposition. So you don't just want to be an author, you want to be unforgettable. The same thing with speaking and all that. So, like I said, the main thing is just have that understanding that you are not going to communicate as any other person, but as me. And to make that a reality, you need to have these 3 things in place. That's what we call preparation. Preparation is in 3 levels. Number 1, personal preparation. So that has to do with knowing who you are. Like I said, I know who I am. I'm an acronym master. I'm an acronym specialist. I've been rightly accused. I'm guilty as charged. So you have to know who you are. Number 2, people preparation. So you have to know who your audience are. So who are my audience? Who do I want to communicate book? Who do I want to help with this book? Every book has a particular audience. And number 3 is professional preparation. That is content. It's all about the content. So this content, you want to be a subject matter of it. So you have to know your content very well. So the 3 level is you have to know yourself. 2, you have to know your audience. 3, you have to know the content. So that you are not communicating as you are communicating as an authority. That's what makes you an author. The word authority came from author. So that's it. You're an authority in that area. So this, I believe I've been able to give you some snippet, but there's a lot of it. We can talk behind the scene. There's a lot of stuff, yeah. But we can give you some stuff that we have developed in the Authors Forum over the years. I can send you all those things, and yeah. So just text me on 484-466-1036. I'll follow you up. True, yeah. Let's bring Coach Remy. Coach Remy is the last question. Thank you so much, ma'am. And Coach Remy, let's have you. And Coach Remy is one of our dynamic leaders in the LAMP global community. So she's also coming out with a book, and very soon.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pastor May. It's so wonderful to see you. Since I saw the advert of your book coming, I was looking forward to coming to hear you speak. So congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
So my question is, you said you put your book in the incubator for a while. How much editing takes place in changing around those chapters? Because my book has been in the incubator for so long, and I kept finding myself changing this, changing that. Thank God for a patient editor. So how much change do you effect, or do you just leave it alone and just
I think
let it go?
yes, at some point you have to. By the way, Coach Remy, good to have you. Thank you. And congratulations on your upcoming book. But I think at some point you have to call it. My sister did that for me, like told me that harsh truth. I think like 3 weeks to tea time. She called me one morning and said, "What's your plan?" I said, I'm editing. She said, "Look, do this. Go through each chapter for 30, set a timer. Each chapter. You go through for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, you move on. 30 minutes, you move on. 30 minutes, you move on. And once you're done, you're done. You are sending it in. Or else you'll never stop." That was what she told me, and I'm just going to pass it on that way, the same way, because it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Even when people are saying, "Oh, it's a great book," you will know that it's not perfect. You will know. You can point to page 58 and show 5 things you would have written differently, right? And if we're going to wait to have that perfect book, we're never going to, publish it. So my first book, I put it away for 5 years, my very first book. But this was for some other reasons, where nobody around me had published a book. My husband had not published it. Nobody had published a book. So I wrote this book and I just didn't know what to do with it. So I left it for about 5 years. And then my husband wrote a book and published it. He wrote a book and published it. I'm like, wait a minute, I can do that. I mean, because then he had set the mechanism in place to self-publish a book. So I just piggybacked on that. But 5 years is too long to wait for a book to publish a book you are done writing. It's too long. I can't imagine all the people in those 5 years that could have read the book in those 5 years and been blessed by it. So, yeah, we're never going to have a perfect book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I say this real quickly?
Yeah.
I worked in software development for several years. And every time we shipped out a product or shipped out a new release, I knew a list of at least 10,000, this was a while ago. So I knew a list of at least 1,000 bugs that we knew we were shipping with our product. 1,000 bugs that we knew we had identified were in that product. But we had to pull the plug and ship it. The only thing was that we made sure that no bug could harm anybody. Right? So if we waited to finish fixing every bug before we sent out the software, we'd never release anything.
Yeah. And it's so true. And Coach May, I found this thing to be true. A lot of people are stuck with perfection. And the thing is, that's why books have 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and all that. And the thing is, this is it. Coach Remy, you keep growing. And knowing that you keep growing, tomorrow you find something. Tomorrow you find something. So that's why you can't just like, "Oh, I want everything to be perfect." You will never do anything. Like Coach May said, in fact, the book I wrote 2 years ago, I said, really? I wrote this? Because I've grown now. The level in which I'm saying this, I said, "Oh, I need to write 2.2 of this." I said, "No, let us wait first, because I have some topic I'm dealing with now." So that's the same thing. So growth help you to see things differently. That's why you have to release what you have now. You will always grow. You will always grow. So, but that book have to go. Yeah. So as you grow, let that one go out, because somebody is waiting for the book while you are still and second guessing and thinking about that. Yeah. So I think very, very important. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're
Yes, I
welcome.
will let the book go.
Yeah, let the book go out and bless humanity. Pull the plug.
Yes, thank you.
Pull the plug. Yeah. So it's been a great moment with Coach May. And Coach May, there's something unique about you. You are so pleasant. You just have that sweetness coming out of you, like. And we are so glad to have you. And I want to say thank you to everyone on the platform live. And I believe so many people, we're going to release it on YouTube today. It's going live. They are going to be helped. Coach May, last word. What is your closing comment for today? Thank you.
Okay. I want to say thank you very much once again for having me on this platform. I've had an amazing time here. I also want to encourage anybody that reads Silicon Valley Girl to please leave a review for me on Amazon. Please, it helps other people to see the book. and helps them to know that it's worth their while. And I want to say, keep writing, keep writing. Someone needs to hear your story. Someone needs to be encouraged by your story. So don't stop, keep writing. Your story is going to touch somebody.
Yeah. So before we leave, I'm not just quitting the screen. I'm just going to bring out my copy and to encourage everyone to go and get your copy. This is my copy of the Silicon Valley Girls. A very good book, very good read. Please, we're gonna put the link, the Amazon link, on the authors forum for this month so that you can get it. I guarantee you, this is one of the best investment you can make. And one thing I like about the book is very authentic. It's very authentic, and I told Coach May we believe in this work, and we're going to talk about it too in the Women at Blaze coming up this Saturday, and we have almost 300 women registered. So we want to register 1,000 women. We want people to, because somebody need this, and that's what it's all about. So Coach May, thank you. And so to get the book, watch out for the YouTube. It's going to come to you. You can click the link and easily get it. Coach May, want to say thank you for your time. You're one of the busiest person that we know, but you still find time to be here today. I want to say thank you to everyone, all the leaders on this platform. And next month, Authors Forum will bring in two authors, Dr. Dakpo Onodipe and envoy Tony Lewis, and it's going to be a great one. And then August we'll bring in Miss Marissa Nelson. She just wrote a book, Living Live Rich. It's going to be great. Then September we have Coach Sherry McCleary. It's awesome. So we just have great lineups. So till we come your way next time, don't forget, this is an opportunity for inspiration because you can fulfill your aspiration. Thank